It's time for another Tuttle Bone Malt. This evening I'm going to talk about Cave Slave by Narwhal von Klaus and Donald DeLay, with a back cover illustration by Rini. It occurred to me when I was reading this, that we've kind of come around full circle from where we were in the 60s. In the 60s, the biggest thing in the whole world was when characters would team up. That's one of the selling points of the Avengers, was you could get Iron Man and Thor and the Hulk and Captain America all in one book. And that cemented the idea that these characters all inhabited one world. Wasn't an original idea in the 60s. DC had done something similar with Justice Society and All-Star Comics 20 years earlier, but the draw was the same. If you enjoy these characters in their solo books, the thinking was that your enjoyment would be compounded by a factor of 3 or 4 to have all these heroes under one roof, as it were. And I was musing on that while I was reading Cave Slave, because I think we've gone past that to a point where now what's very exciting is when we have a Marvel team-up, or in this case a Comicsgate team-up, of numerous creators. Narwhal has a built-in audience. Those of us who love Narwhal's work are going to flock when there's a new Narwhal offering. And we know what Narwhal brings to the table. Donald DeLay has his built-in audience. And von Klaus has a built-in audience. His books thus far have been one hell of a lot of fun. I'm going to be talking at some point down the road about Terror in the Trenches, because I've got a great bit to say about that. But when I saw Cave Slave as an offering, and I saw that these three creative forces were going to combine, I remember thinking that it was something of a perfect storm. In that these are all three very different men with three very different visions and three very different approaches to storytelling, and a collaboration between these three would be fascinating. And it was. Cave Slave, I was not, growing up, a big fan of the sword and sorcery genre of DC Comics, but I remember them. Claw and right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of them. Later, Arak, Son of Thunder, of course, the Warlord. I had a familiarity with the characters, but they never really drew me in growing up. But I'm sort of recognizing now that my tastes have become more refined. I'm recognizing the particular joys of that genre. they, I guess the big comparison that I would make as a student of the superhero genre would be, in many ways, they're a lot like Aquaman. People who don't understand Aquaman, all they know is, lives underwater and talks to fish, and so that's why there's all these jokes about what a lame superhero Aquaman would be. But as you really dive into, no pun intended, the mythos of Aquaman, you realize that it's much more an adventure book than a superhero book, because he's got 3/4 of the world to play with. And so there's politics, palace intrigue in Atlantis. There's geopolitical politics, Atlantis and its neighbors underwater, as well as its neighbors on the surface. And so what Aquaman does, in a way that a lot of superheroes books don't necessarily do, is its world building, which is what the Sword and Sorcery books, I'm thinking primarily of Warlord and Arak, Son of Thunder, what they did was they built a world. And now that I'm middle-aged, and I'm discovering them at the same time that I'm reading more and more Comicscape books, I'm enjoying the genre more than I did growing up. I'm enjoying Rini's Fiendish, and I enjoyed Cave Slave. Cave Slave is a